A neighbor who went to the US a few years ago started his business and got a few Mexicans working for him in Guatemala, who I realize come to keep an eye on you. I think they come to study who you are. They come to study who you are, to mess with you, or talk about what the Mexicans currently working for him saw, but not what's really going on, just like when they make you leave Guatemala. The same thing with trying to get you into alcoholic or drug behaviors. Even if they try to say that witchcraft doesn't exist, how is it possible that there are Mexicans who come to Guatemala to try to get someone who can obtain American papers to take drugs? If you were to relapse into alcoholic or drug behaviors, it would be because they were introduced to it or was gotten into it, or were gotten into it. I must also say that I don't know why gay people who get involved in these immigration games hang around so much in places where beer is sold. It's not the beer that causes alcoholism, but the witchcraft they cast on an individual. Well, here in Guatemala, I must say it, most of the Chinese restaurants like in San Juan or Bolivar, it sounds like Spanish, voy a libar, I'm gonna get drunk, translated into Spanish. Most of these Chinese restaurants, they sell beer, and people who have these spiritual gifts they get with black magic go to those places. I didn't know it, I didn't realize about it when I got back to Guatemala. But it's not only those places. These people who have those spiritual gifts that they get from black magic, you can find it in any other places. I must also say, it's not the beer that causes alcoholism, but the witchcraft they cast on the individual. I think they do it so they can later say that they only saw that person drunk, because the only way to meet gay people being gay is by going to those places, even if you don't go with the purpose of getting drunk. I don't know if it's some kind of spell or something like that, because they showed me that sexual desire can sometimes be suddenly awakened in someone if the person who does that isn't handsome or doesn't even look presentable, like they're not well dressed or stuff like that. That individual can see that they are, or even be himself, who's doing that witchcraft to awaken your sexual desire but act indifferent. It's something they also use in places where you work, but they only do it during working hours to create a reputation that you only go looking for sexual snitch at work. There was also another Mexican who insisted to go with him somewhere where they sell beer. They do that so that you talk about the witchcraft they do to people to have problems with alcoholism and don't have the chance to get to know someone in those places, which are the places where you can find gay people. This was 4 years after the sexual abuse. He wanted me to go with him to drink beer. I was 16. I remember him, just a second. I remember him asking me how I felt, and he started gossiping with his friend, and said it was because I hadn't been witchcraft into drinking. In 2011, someone showed me that being Mexicans, they can get Guatemalan papers, the DPI, the personal document of identification in Spanish. They get it the same as that of a Guatemalan citizen. I don't know why they haven't talked about this, because if you get an INE in Mexico, INE is the official ID document in Mexico. They want to use it as an excuse to come and follow you and bother you where you work in Guatemala for having used an INE, which supposedly means 4 years in prison. But when they use DPI, just a second. They don't say anything about it. You should use the INE because they wanted to keep appearances that no one knows anything about anyone, but they find out everything about you, and even when you are in Tijuana and they make threats of death to you, even if you are not looking for trouble, they say they are going to call the cops and tell them about that INE you have. Mexican ID you used in Mexico. Seems like they use it to keep track of you when you go back to your country, even if you never misuse that Mexican ID and try not to get involved. There's people who were witnesses in carrying out the process to get that INE. INE, like I as in igloo, N is in no, E as in Edward. They try to make you feel afraid when watching the news about narcos kidnapping immigrants or people calling the cops to get you deported. Cell phones are tapped and people chase you in the buses from state to state. Besides of that, they told me about the witchcraft that the politicians used to secure the Mexico-US border. They got into that witchcraft to know and hear what you are doing. I didn't believe that, but after they threatened me of death in Tijuana, everything what I was talking over the phone or doing, people in the streets used to let me know about it. In fact, I haven't seen the Mexicans who have been keeping an eye on me say or do anything about the Mexicans who are in Guatemala offering drugs or playing games with the relatives of Guatemalan migrants or people who are carrying Guatemalan DPIs, even though they are Mexican and don't even have Guatemalan relatives. And I want to point it out because they come to follow you, like trying to make you feel bad. They making fun about the threats of death in Tijuana, but they don't do anything or talk anything about the Mexicans who came before. They came following you when you returned to Guatemala. They were offering you drugs. They didn't say anything about it or say, well, we already know this immigrant asked for a refugee in Tijuana. Why were you offering him drugs if you were Mexican? I haven't seen anything of that. But they come to bother you, to follow you as if you owe something to them. So I don't know what's the problem with them. And they don't say it up front. That's the worst thing. It's like, we are bothering you, and you should know already why we are following you. I don't know, they act as if they were crazy or something like that. That's why I make it clear it's not racism, it's the truth. That's the way they behave. And then you find news on the news channels saying that there were people being racist with the Mexicans. There are Mexicans who behave this way here in my country, in Guatemala. That's why I wonder why they come to Guatemala to record videos saying, describing how Guatemala is, if they do that. That's the real behavior I've seen from Mexicans. Here in Guatemala, in Mexico, in California. There was a lady in Metro saying I should see a doctor. She knew about the threats of death in Tijuana. And the worst thing is seeing men acting as you should go back to the US, as if I had any obligation with them. Dude, if you're trying to have children, congratulations on you. But I don't care. If you want them to go to the US, or you want to go to the US, try to make it real by yourself. I don't have any obligation with you or your children, because that's something else they have been doing. So, continuing here, I'm almost in. I think that's why they made people live instead of just having the choice of living Guatemala, so they wouldn't talk about this. As for getting in a relationship, as for getting in a relationship as an adult, I think that's why I haven't met anyone who was truly worthwhile as a partner. In the end, they try to get you into these games to annoy you with alcoholism and create a reputation as promiscuous. It's promiscuous because they even knew about the people who got to talk to me when I came to sit in the Central Park. So basically, they were trying to create a reputation of promiscuous to me. It seems like they already knew who I am when I used to go to Central Park to sit, to just hang around. They have been sending messages. And I forgot to turn off the notifications. So I'm not gonna record this. They're trying to stop me from recording this. That's why they have been doing noises, and you see that I have to pause the recording. So as for getting in a relationship as an adult, I think that's why, So I know of some people who got involved in games that supposedly couldn't find a job, and even someone who has been hurt because he got involved in that game, supposedly because of me, even though I don't know them. I know this because he said it in front of me to some gay people who I now know they are Mexicans. Mexicans, Hondurans, or Salvadorans have shown me this situation. Passing by where I'm sitting, two Mexicans come, one passes behind me, and the other passes in front of me. I think the Mexicans who come to keep an eye on me, if I don't make this public, would only say what they were taught, and that's why there have been even people from companies who haven't wanted to hire me, using a credit card debt as an excuse to get me to return to the U.S. and not to tell the truth. Sometimes there are Mexicans who behave as if they were the boss in Guatemala. Even the attitude of the girl who studied with me in that junior high school was aggressive, that she wanted to fight me, or they follow me wherever I go. They do it surreptitiously to avoid getting into legal trouble. I don't know what they are laughing about. So they do it surreptitiously to avoid getting into legal trouble. Above all, when they try to annoy you by as if they were looking for trouble. Something I noticed about Mexicans in Guatemala is that many have what is colloquially called powers, which are gifts they obtain through witchcraft. They give off an evil and dark vibe. Some of them have what they call the devil's evil, because there's something similar practiced in Guatemala that has a similar vibe but less noticeable. They try to force you into alcoholic and drug behavior to try to break your will. A Mexican man who offered me drugs proved this to me. It's the same guy I was talking about, the one who offered me drugs in around my neighborhood. So, just a second. I know he's Mexican because he told me himself. He also told me they knew everything about me, that I worked in a call center. I don't know how he knew this, since I hadn't seen him anywhere before. I think these are the Mexicans who came here who are sitting where I was sitting before, and I had to move to keep on recording. Well, supposedly you get in their way so they can go to the U.S. and they force you into alcoholic and drug behaviors, so you do what they tell you. That's why they say that you only have 3 chances. They let you know it by saying it, dropping hints, giving hints, or just saying it so that you can grasp it. Even if you are not playing any game to know what they try to do to me if I fall for drug behavior just by witchcraft. Sometimes it feels like they either try to punish me with just a second. Punish me with blindness. Actually, from 2 months ago or something like that, and lately, last week, I have been feeling a strange headache in my forehead, and I feel like a small pressure in my eyes, and everything becomes blurred. Just a second. So, as I was saying, everything becomes blurred after feeling this strange pressure on my eyes. And I've been talking about it. I have already uploaded the Spanish version of this audio, but they have been doing this witchcraft to me. And out of nowhere, I ended up having diabetes. That's why I'm making this clear. I know it's witchcraft because it feels like it. It doesn't feel like any sickness, any normal sickness. Yeah, let's say I feel like peeing in specific moments. Right now, I already drank a lot of water and I don't feel like peeing. There are moments when I just finished drinking a glass of water, and in the same moment, in that very moment, I need to go to pee. So that's why I know it's witchcraft. And I remember that I heard when I was a child that the glucose testers can be manipulated. So my glucose is over 400. So I don't think it's real, but those are the results I get from the doctor. But if you ask anyone else, they would say maybe it's because the diabetes. That's why I'm talking about this. So going back to what I was reading, and Fightful, I don't know what would happen to me, what they would do to me if I'd fall back for drug behavior. Because by witchcraft, sometimes it feels like they try to punish me with blindness, so that I could let the world know what's going on. That's why they create these type of games, so that when people get punished, couldn't talk about it. That's why I'm talking, so that there could be an end to those games and stop saying that they don't want to see you good, like having a nice job, having a nice car, nice clothes, and stuff like that. I have heard Mexican people walking past in front of my house saying that they don't want to see him good, like like having a nice job and stuff like that. Because you're talking about what really happens at the Mexico-US border. Because when people get you in those games, no one says anything, and they also stop messing with you because that any Mexican ID or US papers they want to get for you. Just a second. Well, what I was trying to say is that they don't stop messing with you for that any Mexican ID or the US papers they try to get for you. I'm not interested in Mexicans getting me US papers. I had enough with threats of death in Tijuana and Mexicans following me everywhere I go. I'm not interested. I never asked for that favor anyways. In other words, with this alcoholic or drug behavior, they want to get to the point where if they tell you to leave Guatemala, you have to do it. They try to make you lose credibility, getting you into alcoholic and drug behavior several times. They do that with witchcraft or black magic. They even try to force you into alcoholism to justify, to mess with you, and no one can say anything when they hurt you. They also try to justify it by saying that you don't contribute with anything in your household, as if it was a matter that in any way could affect them. So, or that you want to earn more money but don't want to study, even though there are people in the companies in Guatemala who want to go to the US, and in my case, they don't want to let you have job stability. That's the whole truth, because the same Mexican who offered me drugs was the one who hurt my nose and told me that I couldn't get US papers From what they let me know, they know who fractured my jaw, and he is also Mexican. I know this because there have been Mexicans who have been smoking weed, marijuana, in front of the place where that happened. And you can realize that they approved marijuana in California just to make people leave California. Because sometimes you get headaches when somebody's smoking marijuana or weed close to you. And lately, there has been a guy, I don't know if he's from the U.S., but he sat beside me, and he looked like he was smoking weed. And out of nowhere, I started feeling strange, like feeling vulnerable, and saying, "No, don't do that." And I felt the urge of saying that, and I didn't know why. So that's something I guess they do in Mexico and California, so I want to find it out. En español, bueno, últimamente me pasó en zona 1 que había un muchacho que parecía que era de raza negra, que parecía que estaba fumando marihuana y se sentó a la par mía, y de la nada, no sé si practica brujería, pero de la nada empecé a sentir como un impulso de decir, no, no hagas eso. Y pues no sé de dónde salió el decirle que no hagas esto, pero así sucedió. Entonces me imagino que es algo que hacen en México y en California. So, and if you don't want to keep on getting drunk, so I don't know if by doing witchcraft or century again to me to get alcoholic or drug behaviors, they would try to make me say it's my fault when it is not. I mean, I'm not trying to make you say that, but having as a only option.